The Red River rivalry game, Texas OU, OU Texas, the Cotton Bowl, right in the middle of the Texas State Fair, the smell of fried food in the air, and always a high-scoring affair. And the 2021 edition of this game would be no different. Let's set the stage. On one side, we have the Texas Longhorns. They were led by Steve Sarkisian in his first year with the team, and he had a quarterback room of Casey Thompson and Hudson Card, who were both 4-star recruits in their respective years, and they'd replaced a 4-year starter in Sam Ehlinger. So the name of the game for Texas was Change. This was a totally new program in the making after parting ways with Tom Herman, who went 1-4 in the Red River rivalry. And so far, the coaching change was paying off. Texas was 4-1, and their schedule was a 38-18 win over 23rd ranked Louisiana, which was followed by their lone loss, which was a 40-21 defeat versus Arkansas in Fayetteville. And that's a place where, let's just say, things get rowdy when those two meet. But they bounced back with a 58-0 win versus Rice, a staggering 70-35 win versus Texas Tech, and then went on the road with a 32-27 win versus TCU. At the beginning of the year, Hudson Card was the starter. But in the Arkansas blowout loss, Card was pulled on the final drive of the third quarter when Texas was trailing 33-7. Casey Thompson then stepped in and led the Horns to 2 scoring drives, and the job was his from that point on. But even with the inconsistencies at quarterback, the team had one constant in the backfield, and that was running back Bijan Robinson. The future top 10 draft pick was a monster on the ground, and he put up 216 yards and 2 touchdowns on 35 carries the week leading into Red River. And outside, it was the speedy Xavier Worthy and the gritty Jordan Whittington getting the job done. So that's the Horns. Here's the Sooners. Unlike Texas, Oklahoma had their usual cast. Lincoln Riley at head coach, who was 4-1 versus Texas, and their signal caller was Spencer Rattler. You all know the story by now, you've seen the clips. He was the highly rated quarterback who many didn't like for various reasons, and now in his second season as the OU starter, the rails were starting to fall off the wall. They opened the season as the number 2 team in the country, but in the season opener, they barely squeaked past an unranked Tulane team, thanks to Rattler's 1 touchdown to 2 interception performance as the Sooners escaped 40-35. That was strike 1. Strike 2 was in game number 3, which was versus Nebraska. The Sooners again escaped with a 1-score victory versus an unranked team. This time Rattler had 1 touchdown to 0 interceptions in a 23-16 win. This was very un-Sooner-like. From the days of Jason White to Sam Bradford to Landry Jones, and then Lincoln Riley's laundry list of Heisman winners in Mayfield and Murray, this was a complete 180 from the high-scoring offensive performances we were used to seeing. And strike 3 would come the very next week versus West Virginia. We were now in unfathomable territory, as the Sooners had only beaten an unranked West Virginia 16-13 thanks to a last-second field goal. Yet again, it was Rattler with just 1 touchdown and 1 interception, as this was a game where the Sooners didn't lead for a single second. So to nobody's surprise, on that night, the restless Sooner faithful turned to the backup quarterback, a guy that goes by the name of Caleb Williams.
The chant is, "We want Caleb."
Caleb Williams out of Gonzaga High School was the number 2 quarterback in the country with a 99 composite rating. The kid was the Elite 11 Finals MVP and had one of the all-time great moments as he won the state championship with a miraculous last-second Hail Mary. The Sooners were patient with Rattler, but at a place like Oklahoma, you can only get away with subpar QB play for so long. So how'd Rattler respond with Caleb breathing down his neck? Well, he'd have his best performance of the season when his team needed him most. In a more classic-like Oklahoma Sooner game, they'd escape in a 37-31 shootout versus an unranked Kansas State, and Rattler was 22 for 25 for 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. So had Rattler found his momentum? After all, he was a projected number 1 overall draft pick and had serious potential to win the Heisman, so this start to the season was very uncharacteristic. And now, he'd truly be put up to the test as it was time for Red River. Oklahoma was 5-0 riding a struggling quarterback who finally put it together. Texas, meanwhile, was 4-1 dancing behind their second quarterback of the year in Casey Thompson and their all-time great running back. And this game is known for its high-scoring affairs. It might have had 3 different names, but the play on the field remains the same. This is the 2021 edition of the Red River Shootout, showdown, or rivalry, whatever you want to call it. And right out the gate, on the very first play from scrimmage, it was the true freshman Xavier Worthy taking the screen 75 yards for 6 and stunning the OU half of the Cotton Bowl. Already you could see what type of game this would be, and Rattler would need to be at his best. But it continued to be all Texas, as Demarion Overshown ended the drive with the quickness on 3rd down, and then the ensuing punt would be blocked and the Horns would take over inside the 5. Of course, it was Overshown with the block. And the shifty Bijan Robinson would take advantage with a 2-yard rushing touchdown. And suddenly, just 1 minute and 53 seconds in, the Horns led 14-0. Needing an answer, Rattler drove right down the field, and now it was looking more OU Texas-like, with his Sooners answering quickly. Remember last year, it was Rattler who was benched in this very game before he was reinserted and led the 53-45 shootout win in overtime versus the Horns. So maybe slow starts were just a thing for Rattler in the Cotton Bowl, but being down 14-0 that quick seemed to be the spark he needed. And the defense definitely felt that spark as they forced a 3-and-out to give OU the ball back. But just as quick as the Sooners got hot, they cooled down as Rattler threw a massive interception right into the hands of BJ Foster. And in 2 plays, it was Worthy and Robinson getting the Horns in position to take a 21-7 lead on a Joshua Moore touchdown reception in the corner of the end zone. So far, Steve Sarkisian was calling a masterclass in his first taste of this rivalry, and the Horns went back up 2 scores. So how would Rattler answer? He'd be wrapped up once again on 3rd down. This time, Alfred Collins and the Sooners were in shock. And once again, it was Joshua Moore who found himself wide open, and Casey Thompson let it fly for 48 yards, and unbelievably, it was all burnt orange in quarter 1 as they led 28-7. And down 28-7, with everything looking to fall apart for the Sooners, Lincoln Riley would go to Caleb Williams, and immediately he dashed for 66 yards and a touchdown. Now the deficit was back to 14, and the pressure was back on the Texas offense who went 3-and-out. Riley would then pull out the trickery, and Rattler settled in and found Jeremiah Hall to get down to the 25. But Rattler threw a near costly interception on 3rd down, which led to them just getting a field goal. And the errors were mounting for Rattler on this day, but the defense had his back, and with the Texas offense stalling, the Sooners would get the ball back with all the momentum. But Rattler's next error would mark the end of his time as the OU starting quarterback. Because on 1st down from midfield, Rattler would scramble around and fumble the ball, ending the Sooners' momentum and most importantly, ending the drive. Bijan Robinson would immediately take advantage of the gasp, and the sensation would take it all the way down to the 2-yard line, garnering comparisons to Reggie Bush, and Jared Wiley would finish it off to take a 35-17 lead, and it was Casey Thompson's 4th touchdown of the half. So just like last year, it was Lincoln Riley pulling Spencer Rattler in Red River. But unlike last year, Caleb Williams wasn't letting him get the job back. His first drive would end in a field goal, but they moved the ball 58 yards and Williams made some very impressive throws. Now feeling the pressure right before half, Thompson and Worthy stepped up to get the 3 points back, and the Horns led 38-20 at halftime. Caleb Williams now saw what was in front of him, and in a game full of historic moments, it was his time to make a name for himself and stun the arch-rival Horns. Right out the gate, Caleb showed his mobile ability once again, but after a few possessions, the only difference in the scoreboard was an Oklahoma field goal. The high-scoring action had stalled in the 3rd, and the Texas field goal with 2:45 left was just the 6 points of the quarter. But Kennedy Brooks would open up the following drive with a massive 65-yard run, and Williams finished the drive off with a beautiful touchdown pass to Marvin Mims that erased the deficit back to 11. With the score now 41-30, Texas would need to answer with 1 quarter to go. But Thompson just missed Moore on a pivotal 3rd down, and now Caleb Williams had the chance to make it a 1-score game. Caleb then showcased the heroics once again, finding Marvin Mims, but the Texas defense had seen enough and forced the field goal. So yes, it was a 1-score game now sitting at 41-33, but this was a huge win for the Texas defense. Unfortunately for the Horns, they had lost their fastball, and the 3-and-out gave OU the ball right back with a chance to tie it. And at this point, with everything going your way, on a big 3rd and 19 with nothing to lose, why not let it fly to Marvin Mims? An unbelievable 52-yard touchdown from Williams to Mims, and Lincoln Riley would reinsert Spencer Rattler for the 2-point conversion, and he'd find Drake Stoops for the conversion. And all of a sudden, we were tied. Caleb Williams had come in and led the comeback, and with over 7 minutes to go, it was knotted at 41 apiece. And to make matters even worse for the Horns, the true freshman Worthy would fumble the kickoff return, setting the Sooners up with prize field position. And on the very next play, Kennedy Brooks took the direct snap to the end zone. And for the first time today, the Oklahoma Sooners led in Red River. 1 play, 18 yards, and somehow the Horns were losing this game 48-41 with 7:10 to go. Casey Thompson now needed to answer, and it was now or never, backed up into the face of momentum. And to make up for the crucial mistake, Xavier Worthy answered the call for a 48-yard reception to set up Texas handsomely. But on 4th and 11, with the game hanging in the balance, the Sooner blitz would get to Casey Thompson and force the turnover. Now for Williams, Brooks, and the Sooners, it was all about salting the game away. 4:39 was an eternity for these teams, and the Longhorn defense would give their team one last chance by forcing a 3-and-out. 2:55 for Casey Thompson to save the day, and the drive started well. He got the Horns into Sooner territory, and once again, it was Worthy showing up big. His 8th catch for his 230th yard was his most important so far. But don't worry, he'd one up it, finding the end zone on an incredible 31-yard touchdown reception for his 2nd touchdown in 261st yard. The true freshman had taken over the Cotton Bowl today, Worthy for the Horns and Williams for the Sooners. And now Williams would have a minute 20 left to break a 48-48 tie in his arrival to the scene in one of the most iconic games in college football history. And what about his counterpart Casey Thompson, who now had 5 touchdown passes in just his 4th career start? So what does Caleb Williams have left on this incredible day? He drove right down the field with ease, and with just 10 seconds left, Kennedy Brooks said forget the field goal and ran right into the end zone, reaching pay dirt with 1 second to go on a 33-yard touchdown to beat their arch rival Texas. From 21 down, Caleb Williams, Marvin Mims, and Kennedy Brooks had led the incredible comeback to etch their names in Red River lore forever. Lincoln Riley had done it to the Horns again, and what is showing all around by the offenses. On the Texas side, Casey Thompson had went for 388 yards on 20 for 34 passing, 5 total touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Bijan Robinson chipped in for 137 yards and a touchdown on his 20 carries. And the star of the day in burnt orange, Xavier Worthy. He went for 261 yards on 9 receptions and 2 touchdowns, but his costly fumble opened the door for the Sooners to take the lead. And after Rattler, who was 8 for 15 for 111 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and 1 interception was benched, it was Williams who came in and threw for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns, rushed for 88 yards and a touchdown, and turned the ball over 0 times. Most of those 212 passing yards went to Marvin Mims, who caught 5 receptions for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the star of the day for the Sooners will be Kennedy Brooks, who went for 217 yards on his 25 carries and 2 touchdowns. After collapsing versus Oklahoma, the entire Longhorn season fell apart too, which was highlighted by 5 straight losses at the Red River and an unfathomable loss to Kansas at home in a 57-56 overtime final. Meanwhile, for the Sooners, they finished the regular season 10-2, but they went 1-2 in the final 3 games, including a 37-33 loss in Bedlam, which caused them to miss the Big 12 title game. Despite how the season ended for both of these teams, that afternoon in the Cotton Bowl on October 9th was a day we'll never forget.